Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Hey, good evening, horror fans. This is your host, Jerry, along with my partner, Matt, and you're here for another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. And our topic this week is pretty timely. We're going to talk about rental nightmares. And with people traveling, this could be something that comes up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're coming into spring break for millions of people. So vacations are really meant for like peace and relaxation. Which in itself has some irony because we're putting ourselves in these strange new locations away from security in the home and away from our community, which is why I think that vacation nightmare horrors work so well because they dive into that anxiety of being away from home and being vulnerable, and they just take it to the extreme.
We have a couple films this week that are centered around rentals that don't go quite as planned. So hopefully this doesn't happen to anybody traveling here for the holiday week.
Right.
And these are also both from 2022, so they're very recent and timely movies. And I also think they're two of the very best of 2022.
I agree. There was a couple others, but I'd put these in the top 3 or 4 easily.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we're going to start with the movie called X, again from 2022, directed by Ty West. And we start in 1979. And we start with cops rolling up to an old farmhouse, and there are bodies and blood everywhere. And all you see is a preacher on TV in the background, and one of the cops leads another to a basement and says, "You're not going to believe what's here." And then it cuts, and we don't actually see what's in the basement at this point. And we jump to the day prior. And we got a crew heading out in a van, and they're going to film an adult movie. And you got Maxine is kind of the main character, and she wants to be a star. And Wayne is her boyfriend and the producer. And Bobby Lynn is another actress. And the male star of the film is Jackson. And the film director is RJ, and his girlfriend and his assistant is Lorraine. And right away, this film, right from the opening scene, really is reminiscent, and it's a throwback to those 70s horror movies. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ish, Hills Have Eyes. It's
Yep. Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left.
Yeah, even I was thinking of Tobe Hooper's follow-up, Eaten Alive, where an old rundown hotel and they're feeding guests to a alligator out back.
Yeah, it's very 70s grindhouse, old school slasher. Like you had said, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I Spit on Your Grave, but with a little bit of Boogie Nights.
Yeah, and you can see some of these references. The group in the van. They stop at a gas station, which has become kind of trope in the industry.
The trope.
And there's just so many throwbacks, but in a good way,
and just a lot of. In a great way, a lot of homage. You'd see like the ranch. It's like a dry, hazy day, and like the camera's just panning in slowly. It kind of had that Texas Chainsaw feel to it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, where they're going to do the film, it's very rural, very religious. You get that vibe everywhere along the way, and they're filming a movie called The Farmer's Daughter. Is their adult film that they're going to work on. So they rent a cabin at the old farmhouse we see at the opening, and they've rented a cabin on the property from an old couple, Howard and Pearl. And they want to use the farmhouse because that kind of ties into the story that they're trying to tell here in this movie.
Right.
RJ.
They don't tell him. They don't tell him that though. That the guy just thinks it's Wayne by himself. He's like, "Who are all these people you brought here with you?" Yeah. He's like, "Oh," he tries to give him some extra money. He didn't want to, like bother him or anything like that. So he already comes off as like a sleazeball, like something's going on. There's tension.
Yeah, and he says, "I don't like you."
Yeah.
So they begin filming, and RJ is the director, and he has this aspiration that this adult film is going to be art house quality, and he wants unique camera shots, and he wants filming it in vignette, and he's doing all these things. He wants it to be high level pornography.
Yeah, and they say that if they sell half of what Debbie Does Dallas did, then they'll never have to work again.
Yeah, they'll be rich.
Throwing in more of these 70s references.
Yeah. Maxine goes for a walk, and she takes a dip in the water alone, and she's unaware that she's being watched by Pearl and stalked by an alligator in the water.
Yeah.
And it's chasing her, and she doesn't even know it's chasing her, and she climbs out just in time. But on the walk back, she sees Pearl, and Pearl waves her over to the house. And she goes in, and you see, the farmhouse is kind of a mess. It's in disarray, doesn't look clean at all. And Pearl offers her lemonade, but she's acting very weird towards her in like an affectionate way, in like a creepy way.
Yeah. Yeah, like almost like this. I don't want to say hurt puppy, but yeah, there was some kind of like affection going on that was just really unsettling. A lot of this movie is what's brilliant about it is how it's disturbing and unsettling.
It definitely is. Yeah, if she was a man, she would be giving off super creepy vibes.
Right.
And she kind of gives them anyways, even though she's an old woman. And when her husband comes home, she sneaks Pearl out the back door, or Pearl sneaks Maxine out the back door because she wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah. She's like, we'll keep this our little secret.
Yeah.
She's like, what little secret? What are you and that's an important tagline in the movie, as we'll see later. But
yes, this is our little secret. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And so Maxine goes back, and now they're filming her part, and we see Pearl, her face right up against the glass, watching through the dirty window, and she's aroused. She's not offended. She is aroused, and she goes home and tries to engage with her old man husband.
Yeah.
And he tells her he can't do it. I can't do it. I got a bad heart.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the group is sitting around kind of discussing the movie, and Lorraine is questioning how they can do it. And, you're in a relationship, but you do this. And she's kind of like digging into the acting part of it.
The morality, yeah, she's talking about. They're getting into like the morality of it, and they're having their characters are kind of like putting their disposition as far as like where they stand as far as how they feel about making these kinds of things. And it was a lot of that. I think there was that issue back in the 70s when there was like the whole pornography started to kind of like sweep like and get more popular, and there was just a lot of that small town discourse that went around it. And so she's kind of like playing that like protagonist. She's just like, yeah, this is all like immoral, blah blah blah. Like, how could you ever do it? And they call her church mouse.
Yeah, she's the quiet, shy, the last person you'd think to be. And at the beginning, she doesn't know that's what they're doing, so she gets clued in after the fact. But then she kind of twists it around and says, she really didn't expect to like it, but she likes it, and she wants a scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a shock for her character. And RJ, her boyfriend, is extremely unhappy. And he goes outside upset. And he does not want her doing it. He doesn't want to film it. And Wayne comes out. Wayne's like the sleazy producer guy. And, convinces him that it'll be okay. And it's, it's for the art and so forth. And they add the new scene.
I found this part in, this stuff sometimes is unbelievable to me, right? Like it's kind of like the killer with morals, like it's like, well, she's helping film a pornography film, like, so why would it matter? Like, and he's literally the cameraman directing it, and it's like, why would they care? Like, you know what I mean? Like if they're that far in, how can you be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like if you're in that industry, you're kind of just in that industry. Like, it's like, I'm going to film pornography, but then like, I'll never talk to anyone that's ever does that. It's like, really? I don't know if that's how that works.
Yeah. I guess it's different if it's your girlfriend. You're like, it's okay for others, but the thought of your girlfriend being in it kind of rings differently and affects him very badly.
Wayne's girlfriend is the star of the film and he loves it. Right.
Yeah. Like, Wayne's also a sleazeball.
And same with Jackson and the other girl, they date, so it's the morality of it to me is always it's like
they all seem to be in on the vibe except for Lorraine, and but they do it, and it cuts to everybody else is asleep, and we see RJ crying in the shower. It really affected him.
Yep.
And then he gets angry. He dresses, he takes the keys, and he goes out to the van to leave. And when he starts the van and turns on the headlights, Pearl in her nightgown is standing right in front of the van. So he isn't going anywhere.
It's very creepily, almost like a ghost. Yeah.
Yes. And Pearl's appearance is exactly that. She's always wearing white or nothing at all. And you know, wispy hair, very pale. It reminds me of the main character in the Taking of Deborah Logan. Just she's creepy just in the way she appears.
Yeah, there's a supernatural vibe I was waiting to have kicked into the story, and it was never answered. But we'll get to that later.
Yep. So he goes out, and at this point, he just, you know, she's an old woman. Maybe she wandered out. Maybe she's not with it mentally, and he goes and tries to help her, and she hugs him and holds him, and is again being
it's tender. Yeah, she's like tender and like hugging, and just kind of like, oh yeah, and it's just like, and he's like, what is going on? Like
he says, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And the knife goes straight into the side of his throat, and he falls down. He's gurgling, and she mounts him in what you would describe as a sexual manner, and she's straddling him, and then she stabs him in the neck and face like 100 times.
Yeah,
she stabs his neck so much there ceases to be flesh remaining, and basically decapitates him with individual knife stabs.
And one of the beautiful parts of the cinematography of this movie, because it has great cinematography, like bringing back that 70s, you know, very stylistic 70s grindhouse old school slasher, is that it takes all the blood is flying onto the headlights, and so it's creating all this red lights, and so you have this like old school grindhouse red light look, but it's from the blood on the headlamps. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And
when I saw this scene, I was like, oh, this is a slasher.
Yeah, it's a full-on slash, and you're right. I noted that as well. Because then she stands up, and now the whole scene is lit by headlights that are showing red.
Yeah,
and she does this crazy dance over his body.
Yeah, this like 70s flowery hippie dance. Yeah,
it's insanity. Lorraine wakes up, and she goes looking for RJ. And of course, Wayne comes out, and hey, what's going on? She convinces him to help her. He goes into a barn where he proceeds to step straight on a nail out of a board. And I don't care how many times people step on nails in movies, it always makes me cringe. It's just like,
Yeah, he has a rough couple of minutes coming up.
He does. He's calling for RJ, and he sees 4 holes poking the side of the barn, and he can see light through them. Yeah. So he kind of shimmies over, and they show him looking out each hole, and he goes, the first hole, nothing, second hole. When he gets to the last hole, the pitchfork that made the holes comes straight back in and right through his eyeball.
Coming right through.
As I'm going, oop, eyeball for Matt. And so he's toast.
Yeah. We can't have a movie without a scene like that. It just wouldn't be right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how many eyeballs we getting, but that was a good one.
I've been trying to say that my whole life. Like every movie.
Lorraine at this point runs into Howard, and he asks her to help him find his wife. And he sends her down to the basement to get a flashlight, where he locks her in.
Yeah. And he's playing he's playing a pity old man, like, oh, you know, her hips are bad, and would you just be a dear and go downstairs? And she's like, okay.
Yeah. He locks her in, and she finally finds a light, gets it turned on, and sees in the basement there's a dead man hanging there, bloody, with his pants down around his ankles. So it's like, okay, and it gives you like a clue as to the kind of stuff going on.
A great scream, by the way, a great horrifying scream that she gives. Yeah.
It's good. We'll talk about it. The acting
was really good,
excellent through the whole. A lot of great actors and actresses in this movie, and they really.
Jenna Ortega seems to be in everything lately. Yeah, she's in the new Scream movie too, which I can't wait to see.
Yeah, Lorraine is Jen Ortega, who hit big as Wednesday in the Addams Family thing, and because of that, I kind of saw her as younger than this character should be, type of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think in real life she's like 23, 24 or something.
I think she's only 20, but either way, she's old enough to do it.
Right.
But yeah, she's great. And she freaks out, obviously, seeing a dead, naked man hanging there. So at this point, Jackson wakes up and he goes out and he finds the old man looking for his wife, and he offers to help. They both had military backgrounds, and he's like, Marine
once
forever.
a Marine, always a Marine kind of thing. Yeah.
And he ends up, he goes down by the water and he sees a car half submerged in the water by the property. And, you tie back to the man in the basement, like, they've kind of pulled this kind of scam before, it seems.
Yeah. There's something else going on. So now they're starting to give the audience clues about like just a lot of the underlying atrocities that have happened, that this guy's responsible for. And
it may even trigger into why Howard was upset that it was more than one person there, because it wasn't exactly what he was.
Now we have to deal with now we have to deal with all these bodies. Yeah.
And Jackson gets just a shotgun in the chest. He has kind of one of the most boring deaths, but he got to be the star of the porn. So I guess you win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. We see Pearl is watching Maxine sleep, and now we know Pearl is just as creepy as they come and deadly.
Yeah.
And she pulls the covers down, strips, and climbs in bed with her, and she is caressing her body with her bloody hands.
Yeah.
Again, very disturbing scene, just the nature of how they do it.
Yeah.
And when you realize that Pearl and Maxine are both the same actress,
yes,
they pull it off amazingly.
I was gonna bring that up, but yeah, that it's Mia Goth, I believe.
Mia Goth,
yeah. That fantastic job. Because I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about this movie going in. I didn't look at who the starring, who was playing who. I just watched the movie, and I remember at one point in the movie, I'm watching it, and I'm like, wait a second, is that the same actress? Okay, there's something, and then they have that scene where they're together. They start to slowly put it together for you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how they do it, but that's a very creepy and uneasy scene. And Maxine wakes up and obviously screams, and Bobby Lynn runs out to see what's going on, and naked Pearl just walks past her.
Yeah, just like a scurry.
What the heck was that? Meanwhile, Lorraine had used the hatchet she found in the basement, and she hatchets through the door to create an opening, trying to reach around and unlock it. And Howard smashes her hand with the butt of his shotgun and sends her back down. So she's trapped. And now her hand's smashed.
Stay in the cellar. Yeah.
And Bobby Lynn goes out looking for Jackson, and she finds Pearl naked on the dock, and she tries to help her. She's like, I can't remember, an aunt or a grandmother, used to get lost. And she's being very helpful and, wants to take care of the older woman. And Pearl calls her names and then slaps her and pushes her into the water. And this time the gator's right there and just tears her up.
Yeah. There's that rifle on the wall that was in the first act.
Yeah. And there it was. And you could see it coming, and it still paid off pretty well.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
At this point, Howard and Pearl go into the cabin, and at this point, all we have left is Maxine, and we have Lorraine locked in the basement. So they go into the cabin, and Maxine hides under the bed, only to have
after just doing some drugs. She was just doing coke.
Yeah. That's how she deals with stuff.
Yeah. This movie's
the late
outrageous,
70s, I guess.
Yeah.
They through all the excitement, they get on the bed, and Howard and Pearl start kissing, and they actually finally start having sex, even though she's not sure if his heart can take it.
No,
they're having sex on the bed right over her.
One of the most disturbing scenes in any horror movie.
The whole movie makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
they do a great job with it, and they do it in such an artistic way where it's actually well done. So it's part of the genius
The
in the
gore is
direction.
great. The effects are
Yep,
great. The sound and lighting and camera work is great.
yep,
The acting's great, but uh,
yeah,
they give you this steady creepiness that just stays with
yeah.
you.
Yeah, it never slips into satire. It just always stays true to what it is. It could have made fun of the '70s stuff. It could have they did a lot of like classic '70s camera, like they did a lot of camera work, but they made it like in modern way. Like it
Yeah,
just feels like a modern movie. Like it's really well done.
yeah, that's exactly what I noted. Very 70s, but with a modern flair to it.
Hmm.
And so Maxine quietly slips out and escapes. And she gets to the van, but there's no keys. But she takes the gun out of the glove box and she goes into the house looking for the keys. And she hears Lorraine. So she lets Lorraine out of the basement, and Lorraine is mad and screaming at her and goes just flying out the door, where she is met with a shotgun to the chest, and she's done.
Boom, feet straight up.
Yep.
Yeah,
And we see Howard dragging the body in. And at this point, the exertion of killing people, having sex, and now dragging a body, he finally has his heart attack and collapses against the wall.
yeah.
Too much for Howard.
That's too much for him. Yeah, too much of a night.
Yeah. Uh, Maxine finds the keys to their truck, not the van, but their old truck, takes them, and she confronts Pearl with the gun. And Pearl's talking, and I thought this part was cool, knowing it's the same actress playing both roles.
Yeah,
Pearl starts talking about how much alike they are, and you and me are the same. I just thought that
yeah,
was kind of a
yeah.
tongue in
It's
cheek.
very meta. Yeah,
Yeah. And Maxine says we're nothing alike and tries to shoot her and finds the gun is empty. So Pearl picks up the shotgun, and I had to watch this scene 3 times. She picks up the shotgun, aims at Maxine. Maxine ducks, and when Pearl pulls the trigger, the kick of the shotgun throws her through the front door, out onto the porch, and down the front steps.
yeah. She cleared 20 feet.
It was unbelievable, but fantastic. Like I said, I kept
I loved
rewatching it.
it.
I'm like, I
Yeah, I
can't
loved
believe
it.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
So now she's laying there, and she broke her hip, and Maxine walks past her, and she's trying to crawl, and she's saying, "Help me, my hip is broke." And this part I didn't see coming.
No.
Maxine gets in the truck and backs straight over Pearl's head and pops it like a grape.
Yeah, it was like running over a cantaloupe in a driveway.
It just bursts,
And they
then
showed
she
it, and she's
puts it in gear and drives forward through the mess once again.
one more time. Yeah,
It was
and then she says, "This will be our
unbelievable.
little secret."
And then it cuts back to the cops, and all the only thing that we are revealed at this point is the preacher that's been on TV, just on and on and on,
Mhm.
going on with his sermon.
Kind of in the background, they would kind of like just like juxtapose him into certain scenes here and there.
And he's talking about sin, and he's talking about repent, and then he uncovers a picture of his daughter Maxine, who's gone the way of sin, and
Yeah,
it's a younger picture of the Maxine we just saw get away, which I thought was kind of cool.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, again, really throwback to the '70s hardcore. It's got elements of Psycho in it. It's got
Mhm.
it goes all
They even
over.
they even mention Psycho. They even mention it.
But
He's like, you can't just change the plot halfway through when he's talking about the porn. He's like,
Yeah.
you can't just change the plot halfway through, and they all look at each other.
They're like, yeah, what about
Because
Psycho?
it's a meta joke. It's a meta joke about the movie because halfway through it changes. Like
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah, no, it's a really good flick. It's enjoyable. It's a little twisted, a little dark, which I like, but I thought it was an excellent movie, one of the best of 2022.
Yeah, it was refreshingly different. I liked it, and I still have questions. I still have to see Pearl, and I got some. There's some weird there has to be some weird supernatural thing I'm not aware of, right? Because it's almost like why is Maxine? Why is she playing Pearl and Maxine? Like she's playing both she's playing both characters. Right. And so like, and they kind of look similar. She comes up to her, like, you have such a beautiful face. Like she's like enchanted by her. So like, is there something going on? Some weird, like Stephen King time lapse thing where that is her later in the future? And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Not that
I
I
don't
know
know.
of, but I don't know. I have not seen Pearl,
And there's
which
also
is a
going to be a third
prequel.
movie, right? Yeah.
And then they're also doing a film called Maxine with 3 X's in the middle about her life going forward. So
going forward. So yeah, we'll have to see how it all ties in. I don't know. I'm a huge fan, and I would recommend that movie to anyone.
it could make for a great trilogy, but kicks
Yep,
it off
we'll
with
see.
a good start.
Yep.
All right, our second film from later on in 2022, and this one I saw in the theaters. This is Barbarian, directed by Zach Kreger, and it's his directorial debut. And I'm always amazed when you see people get better and work up to their craft. When people
Yep.
hit it out of the park right away, I'm always amazed. And we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Toby Hooper's first film, and it's like you're not going to get any better than that. That's
Right.
just amazing.
Well, yeah, you make a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you've just you've created a standard.
Yeah. Anything else is going to fall short most likely. But
Right.
Zach Kreger hit it out of the park with this one, and it's another rental nightmare, but in a completely different way.
It's more modern as well. The last movie was 70s. Now we're dealing with more modern times. It's Airbnb.
Yeah, and it was like a new subset of Airbnb horror that can go in a lot of different directions. This falls right in there. Our first film kind of predates Airbnb by a lot, so different vibe. But the thing about this movie is, and I kept reading about it prior to seeing it. It was like, and they did a great job of, you don't want to know anything going in.
Right. The trailer doesn't show a lot. Yeah.
Yep. And what you think you're going to see is not what you're going to see in the best way possible. So,
and they do that throughout the movie. That's actually one thing I love about this movie is that there's constant character development through all 3 acts. They always change the character where you think they're going to go, and then they change it, and they do that really well. Or they make you think a character is going in a certain way, and it's not. And I think they just have great character development, and for a movie like this,
I think because they present scenarios that are familiar, and you think, oh, okay, I know what this is, and then you don't, because they go in a completely different direction, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's something to be something to be said that it's an A24 movie, and they've produced a lot of great movies. So
so we start with our Tess arrives at an Airbnb, and it's late at night, and it's pouring rain, and she can't get in, and she finds out that Keith is already there. And one thing I didn't realize when we were doing this is, as now we've done back-to-back Bill Skarsgård, as we covered It last week, and now he plays Keith. So he's already there at this house that's apparently double booked. And Keith offers for her to stay. He'll take the couch. She can have the bedroom. And there's some kind of like tension because in this scenario things are going to go bad. They always do in this kind of movie.
Yes.
She says, I have to have the sheets washed. So they stay up washing the sheets, and they have really nice conversation. They get to know each other. There's laughs. They share a drink, and it's all good. And you're like, okay, this is not exactly what I expected.
This scene is incredible to me because the entire time I watched this movie, the entire time I'm watching this film, the scene, you think something bad's gonna happen. Like, where's it's tension? It's tension. It's like, what's going on? Who is this guy? There's something going on. There's a catch. You know what I mean? This guy's a creep. He's gonna do something.
Right.
And the whole time they said it's just them having a good time. If you go back and rewatch it, it's like, oh, they're just actually two people having trying to relax and have a glass of wine and be like, hey, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, but they create this tension intentionally, and it just does it so well.
Exactly what the tension is based on nothing other than your expectation
on your perception
of what's going to go wrong. And there's really nothing there. So they go to sleep, all is good, and then she is awakened by her door creaking open. And I would think, no matter how good the conversation went, your bedroom door is locked. That was my first thought.
Right.
You're locking that door. But
unless there isn't, some houses don't have locks on bedroom doors and stuff, so.
So she checks it out, and Keith is making noises while sleeping on the couch. So he didn't open the door. So it's just one scene of, maybe there is something, maybe there isn't.
Yeah.
Which further ratchets that tension a little bit. And then we cut to morning. and he is gone. But he leaves a nice note. Hey, enjoyed talking to you last night. Have a great day.
Yep.
Good luck at your interview. And that's it.
Yep.
And we see her leave the house, and in daylight, we can see the neighborhood is totally run down.
Yeah, it's just a dilapidated town.
Boarded up. Like you wouldn't think you'd have an Airbnb, and that nobody would show up during the day and rent this Airbnb. But that's where they are. And it's in a section of Detroit, and it's in bad shape.
I stayed at an Airbnb in Niagara Falls that looked like that once.
Okay. So it does happen. Did you go in the basement?
No. I stayed upstairs the whole time. I left in the morning.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Even at her job interview, they tell her, the woman she's interviewing with says, you should not be, no one should be staying there. It's unsafe.
Right. But it's a real neighborhood in Detroit. Yeah, that's a real, they filmed it in a real area.
When she returns, there's a man on the street, and he, of course, he looks like a street person, and he's coming at her yelling, and she's running and gets inside as fast as she can. She calls 911, and something that's indicative of issues in this area going forward. They're too busy. They don't have anyone to send. So they just ignore her 911 call. So inside, she's locked in now. She's looking for toilet paper. It's not well stocked, and she finds a basement. She goes down, and the basement door shuts and locks behind her. But well in the basement, she finds a hidden door with a long, dark hallway and a hidden room at the end. And in the hidden room, there's a dirty bed. It's possibly blood that's dried on it. You can't really tell. There's a video camera set up, and a bucket. And it's like
creepy.
Again, the power of suggestion.
Yeah.
Like that's it. There's a bed, a bucket, and a camera, and your mind goes, nothing good could have ever happened here.
Yeah, and there's no jump scare. It's just her slowly exploring the house. It's kind of just one frame at a time. She's going downstairs, and it's just really slow and tense. And they make you think something's going to happen. And it's just her exploring the visuals of what's going on. And there's just it's disturbing again.
Mm-hmm. And now you're going, okay, now I really don't know where this is going.
Right. The whole movie does this,
which is a great thing. Keith arrives back at the house and helps her get out, and she tells him about the room, and he goes down to investigate.
Yeah.
And they're she's upstairs, and she's calling to him, and he's calling back, and all of a sudden he stops answering. So she goes down after him. At the end of the hallway, there's another door, and that one goes down steps, just disappearing into the dark. And she's yelling, and finally she hears Keith down there, but he sounds like he's very far away. And she starts going down in the dark. And as she gets to the bottom, and she's just got a little flashlight, and she's looking around, and Keith comes crawling to her from the darkness, and he's petrified. And he says, someone is down here.
Yeah.
And she wants to go back. He's
like, something bit me. Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to go the other way. And all of a sudden we see a naked woman with stringy hair, terrible teeth, and just floppy breasts.
Just the 10-foot golem. Yeah.
Yeah. She just grabs him and smashes his head against the wall.
Repeatedly.
Until dead.
Yep.
And then we cut. We go to Hollywood, and we meet an actor named AJ, who was just getting fired from his job and accused of rape by his co-star on the TV show he was filming.
Yep.
And he's an absolute ass. We find out he's set to be broke in 3 months, and his accountant fires him. Like, he's just an ass, and nobody wants to touch him.
Everyone drops him. No one wants anything to do with him. He's just your atypical, like you said, ass. Just
entitled, arrogant,
entitled. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So he goes to Michigan to check out property he owns, and we see where the connection is coming.
Right.
When he pulls up, Tessa's car is still there, and hers and Keith's belongings are inside, and they were supposed to be checked out 2 weeks ago. So now we know not only did we get a cut, we get a time lapse.
Right. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks, and it's just everything's still in the house. The makeup bag, it hit Keith's bag is still there with toothbrush and everything. So he's generally confused. He's been dealing with all this stuff. He doesn't even check in on these properties, and he's coming in talking to his manager, like, "What's been going on here? Like, what's been going on?" She's like, she doesn't even have an answer for him. She's like, "No one's been there in a while. Everyone's gone." Like, so he just thinks it's empty and nothing's been happening.
Yeah. With the doors being propped open, he then sees the basement and the secret room, and he is suddenly only concerned with if this added room adds to the value of the house.
Yeah, he's Googling it. Can you rent it downstairs?
Yeah, he gets a tape measure out, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is." And he's measuring the room. He doesn't think anything of the bed and the camera and the bucket. Like our
He's
reaction
not even
was,
thinking. He's not even thinking about the allegations that are on him right now and him losing his career. Yeah, he's just he's a very self-centered, right in front of his nose type of person, you know.
But when we as the audience saw that room, our reaction was strong. Like,
Right,
holy
right.
crap,
He saw
something's
that.
wrong.
Right, he saw that and thought, "Oh, I could rent this." Like,
Nothing registers to him. Yeah, it's
Right.
it's crazy how oblivious he is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that speaks to the type of character he is, because I mean, he does things without really understanding the consequences, and he does them very selfishly.
Yeah.
He says it right to his friend when they're at the bar earlier. He's like, "I'm aggressive and I just do what's best for me." And that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She might have said no, but after a while,
she needs some
was into it.
convincing. Yeah, she needs some convincing, but she was into it.
Yeah, just awful human
just
being.
the worst kind of person.
Yeah, the funny thing is, it's Justin Long, who often plays a happy-go-lucky guy, or I think of him in Dodgeball. But
he's
plays
gotten
the
into
ass
some
well.
horror. He's gotten into some horror too. Yeah, I think he's got a good career in horror. He did Walrus, and he did there was a couple other ones he did too.
I think he's in the original Hatchet. But yeah.
Jeepers Creepers. He was in Jeepers Creepers.
There you go. He now he finds the second door, and now he's even more excited because he's measuring down the steps and he's measuring down the hallway.
He's got his tape measure out. Yeah, he's like,
and luckily he must have a 100-foot tape measure, because he just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, and it's the worst. Like, it looks like it's like 1890s cavern mines, like down there. Like, why? I wouldn't even want to be down there. Like,
but he's
no
excited
windows
about
or oxygen. Yeah, he's like, land.
Finally, he goes far enough. He sees a light from a room, and he goes to check it out, and he finds a room just full of dirty blankets, and a small TV is playing a video on breastfeeding. It's like a video for new mothers, and it's like
just disturbing. Just like, all right,
wild.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the tape gets pulled out of his hand, and he starts running after it, and he falls down a hole, which is quickly slammed shut with a metal grate over the top of him. And as the light comes around, we see Tess is in the hole too, and she's telling him to be quiet.
Yeah.
And so last we saw Tess was
freaked out. 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah.
It was a quick cut, and then now we found out what happened to her. Well, now we make another cut, and we flash back to the early 80s, and the neighborhood at this point was nice, and a guy named Frank owns the house, and we follow Frank through his daily errands, and we find out that he abducts women, rapes them, and keeps them locked in the tunnels. When we first see the tunnels, there's like empty crates and cages and just all kinds of disturbing stuff. And now we know why. So we get a little history of the house. At this point,
and he's just kind of casually going to the store and buying stuff and supplies.
Yeah. And he's, then he just picks out a woman, follows her, switches into like a worker's uniform, and goes in the house to check it out, and he casually flips the lock in the bathroom window and leaves and says, everything's good. Thank you, ma'am. And, then they don't show anything else, but you don't need to see anything else. You totally get the idea.
It's very implied. Yeah. They're kind of giving you, it's actually a really smart way to give a quick backstory, to kind of fill in some of the information. I thought it was done well. It wasn't overdone. It was just a couple minutes to kind of show you real quick. And then they kind of.
Yep. Absolutely. At this point, a filthy hand with a baby bottle, reaches down through the grate and is trying to feed AJ milk.
This was horrible. There's like hair on like the nipple of the bottle, and I was like, I'd like kill me. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's filth. It's awful. Well, it gets worse
Yeah.
because he won't drink it. So the mother jumps in and takes him and leaves with him. And
Just drags him by his nails.
Yeah, it's apparent that she's viewing her captives as her babies, as her children. And we see her attempting to breastfeed AJ with her just awful.
Yeah. It's visceral.
Yes, it's worse than the bottle. But with the grate left open, Tess has an opportunity to escape the hole. The mother hears her finally, and because she trips on the tape, the tape.
Right. Yeah, the tape makes a noise. Yep.
And
so she looks up and she looks her out, and she's like, yeah, she goes after her.
And Tess makes it to the cellar window, and we call her Mother. The character's called Mother. So Mother's chasing her. And just as Mother grabs for her, the street guy pulls her out the window. And his name's Andre, and he was trying to get her attention a couple weeks before.
And they make it seem like he was some crazy person, like running up to her. You know, the way they kind of do the camera angle, it's a little shaky, and he's like, "Hey, get out of here!" And like he's just like chasing her, and she gets real scared and runs in the house. And it's the scene where you absolutely believe that whatever that character was coming after her.
Absolutely.
You're like, wow, this whole situation's a nightmare. And so now they do a great job. This is again what this movie does constantly is constantly changing the character or your perceptions of the character. And so now we find out that he was trying to help her. He's trying to save her.
Yeah, telling her to stay away. And so he helps her get out and tells her, you got to be gone before dark. So they walk down to like a convenience store, and Tess calls the cops, but they do not believe her, and they think she's a crackhead, and they leave her back at the house.
Yeah,
and
this was one of the scenes I don't find believable. I'm like, wait a second. If you go to the cops hysterical and you look like that, they legally have to do something, right? But it's just a movie. I'll leave it alone.
Well, but she's locked in a hole. She's filthy. She does look like a crackhead. She doesn't own the house. She doesn't have a key.
That's true. And they probably deal with a lot of that nonsense. So I'll give it that. Yeah.
It's frustrating, and you're right, probably a little bit unbelievable, but it did have some credibility because they already established there's not enough cops. They probably don't care about this area at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And they got another call come in, and they took off.
They had to go. Yeah.
At this point, we see AJ trying to escape, and he finds a room with a bell on it. And inside the room is Frank. And Frank is old and feeble, but he's still alive. And he has VHS tapes lining the wall. And if you're wondering, geez, I wonder how many women Frank abducted, the number's staggering.
Yeah.
Because he has to have 50 VHS tapes with different descriptions on them.
Yeah, it's more of that the way they do the cinematography and just create those images, for you to interpret. They do that throughout this entire movie. That's one of these scenes, and like they never show you what's on the tape.
No.
He looks what's on the tape and just turns around. He's just disgusted, and like I like how they leave that to the imagination.
Yeah, no more than they show you, the result of him unlocking that window. It's the picture you paint in your mind is darker than what they could show you. Right. So there's no point.
Right. Yeah.
And they got plenty of other things to show you still.
Right. Yeah. They really blend, showing the audience certain things and then letting the tension build in your own mind, your own perceptions. They do that perfectly in this movie.
So Frank has AJ move his nightstand closer to him, where he opens a drawer and inside is a gun. And at this point, Frank just blows his own head off.
Well, this is another one of those micro moments in the movie, because the movie is constantly changing your perceptions, where they think that they spend a good minute and a half where you think he's going to shoot AJ, but then he turns the gun on himself. But that's just like a micro version of what they're doing the entire movie.
Yep, absolutely. So Tess gets her keys and tries to drive away. And at this point, Mother bounds out the front door in all her full naked glory. and is after her. But Tess has the car in gear and rams Mother straight into the house with the car, using the car as a battering ram, and just crushes her against the house.
Yeah, which is the move I wanted her to do. I was like, run her into the house, and I was like cheering when she did it.
Absolutely. She then goes in to find AJ, and he shoots her, not knowing it was her. He took the gun from Frank. She comes running after, she's trying to save him, but he shoots
He's
her.
He's panicking in the dark and hears something and just shoots. Yeah.
At this point, it's unfortunate, but forgivable. He wasn't being a jerk.
Right. Wasn't
he was
intentional.
Genuinely scared.
You can see how you would have done the same thing. You're freaking out trying to get out of this place. You hear someone in the caverns coming towards you and just shoot.
Yeah. And it's in the side. It's probably not lethal, but definitely hinders her.
Yeah. From all the war movies I've seen, it was a flesh wound.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Nothing that would end anybody in a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they go outside together, and Mother is gone. She's not between the car and the house anymore. But they stagger down the street, and AJ is helping her. And you're looking for a redemption arc for this character, perhaps. And they hint at it, but they always misdirect.
Yeah.
They make it to where Andre is. He brings them into his area, and they tell him that they're safe. He said, I've been safe in this area for years. No one comes in here.
Right.
And as they're sitting there, AJ shows remorse for shooting Tess and for hurting her. And you can kind of see him playing that his remorse is for greater than just that. And maybe he is, doesn't want to be an ass anymore and realizes he's questioning.
He's like, am I really a bad person? Have I hurt people? Like, how do I change that? I need to rectify this. He's talking about the allegations. He's kind of like going over his mind, his life. He's like, man, I've got to change a bunch of things in my life. I got to rectify things.
Yep. And Andre makes the statement that you're safe here until morning. And just as he says that, Mother jumps out and kills him.
Puts him in a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Snaps his arm off.
Yes. Yeah, they were doing MMA training down in the basement. Yeah. AJ and Tess run away, and they're climbing the water tower, which is kind of the area where Andre had brought him in, and which immediately didn't make sense to me. You are trapping yourself.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was intentional. From what happens, I don't know. But he runs right up there. Yeah. And then he gets up there and he's just like, there's nowhere to go. It's like, well, where did you think you were going to go?
Yeah, there's an escalator on top of the water tower. But Tess, with her injury, is obviously lagging a little bit behind. And AJ sees Mother is coming up the stairs fast, and he's after him. And all he can think to do is push Tess off the water tower. So much for his redemption arc, right?
Yeah. You're just another monster. Yeah.
He pushes her off to distract Mother, who dives immediately off the tower after her.
Yeah, well, he throws her off. He says, "Go get your baby," and throws her off. Like maybe like he knew that would happen or was hoping.
Yeah. It's just an ass turn by him again. AJ climbs down. And we didn't see the results of the fall. Well, they look down, they see, there's kind of the people are there in the road, but he comes down and Tess is still alive. AJ picks up the gun. Mother broke her fall. She actually got herself under her and protected her.
Yeah.
AJ starts babbling an excuse about what he did, and I didn't have a choice, and I didn't mean to hurt you, and this and that.
And then he's justifying it by saying, well, you're okay, so it was fine. It was fine. You're fine. Yeah, I can still save you. Yeah, he's like running through it in his head. He's going through all these iterations.
Yeah. And as he's doing this, Mother grabs him and chokes him so hard and then smooshes his eyeballs straight into his head.
Yeah, the goo is running down his cheeks.
Yeah, we've seen people with the thumbs through the eyeballs before, but
this was a good one.
Not quite like this.
Yeah, this one was good, where it just turns to a gelatinous glue, like just right down his cheeks. I was like, all right, they did it right.
Her thumbs go so far in, the eyeball matter has nowhere to go but to slip out the sides and
yeah, it was great.
And he deserved it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Mother is trying to get Tess back to the house, but she's hurt, obviously, and Mother is kind of tending to her. And Tess is able to pick up the gun, and she puts it against Mother's head.
And the monster's just saying, Baba, Baba. It's just like that's all it can do is babble.
And she gently touches her face
Mm-hmm.
and gives a tender kiss to her forehead,
Yep.
just as Tess shoots her. And at this point, Tess is alone and just hobbling down the street. And that's the end of the movie. And like I said, this movie, I liked it a lot when I saw it in the theaters. I liked it a lot when I rewatched it.
Yeah.
Even knowing the misdirections were coming up, I was impressed with the misdirections.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's well made. I've seen the movie a couple times myself, and it's just each time you find like depth and nuance in how they connected it, and you're like, well, that was genius how they did that. Like there's no real fat in this movie. You know, like each scene is important. It's just very tight. It's a very tight movie. I think it's great. It's funny that it's also I didn't really catch it until the second time I've seen it 3 times, but the second time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's Barbary Street, Barbarian. It's the you know what I mean? Like it took me a while. It took me a second time to catch on to that, but it's on Barbary Street, so that's why it's the Barbarian.
And I never caught that, and I always wondered about the title, but I always just assumed the title was "We're not going to tell you anything."
Oh, okay, yeah.
But,
well, it's on Barbary Street, so it's a Barbarian, right? Because that's where it's from.
yeah,
And it's another interesting thing in the movie is it's kind of just like a homage, like it's kind of like a wink, where they show where he's taking out AJ is taking out he's opening the bag of Keith, and he finds the Jane Eyre book. It's basically, I've never read Jane Eyre, so I had to look this up. Jane Eyre is really one of the parts of the story. There's a husband who locks up his wife in a room, and she gets out and wreaks havoc on the building and the neighborhood and like sets fires and stuff. And so this was kind of like this modern day retelling of Jane Eyre.
gotcha.
They kind of throw a nod in there to it.
Yeah, cool, cool tale. Yeah, again, this movie was well acted. It was well shot. It was the cinematography is good, and
Yep.
and it's just a creepy, twisted tale.
Yeah.
And you think
It's a fun movie.
you think it's, oh yeah, I've seen movies just like this before, and then no, I haven't. It's very unique.
It's very unique. Yeah. And you know, one thing I really like Justin Long when he's in these kinds of movies. They're usually good.
Yeah, like it's good acting all around.
Yeah.
So those are our rental nightmares for this week. We look forward to talking to you next week with another episode, the Weekly Horoscope. I'm Jerry.
Yeah.
That's Matt. And have a great week.
Yeah. Be safe on spring break.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.